Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, welcome back to the channel, and we've got the 10.10 update notes that we're going to be going over here. We've got God and item balance in this video. Of course, new God, Mama Brigitte, I'm going to have a video coming out on her very soon. I'm just waiting for them to showcase them on the patch notes so I can get clips and stuff and make a proper video for it, rather than just going over the notes for her. I feel like it's better to include like clips from the patch notes and like her abilities and how they're going to work and all that kind of stuff. So we're just waiting for her to be shown on the patch notes. I've got it on my second monitor over here. We're waiting for that, but for now we're going to be covering the item and God balance for the 10.10 update. And so yeah, let's just jump into it. So first up, they've re-lowered the in-game timers for like the pre-game in basically all the modes. Assault, they've upped it actually, but it was incorrectly reduced last patch, so they're essentially just fixing that. But yeah, this is just because they introduced recipes, so they gave people, you know, an extra 10-15 seconds to decide what recipe they wanted. But now that everyone kind of has it figured out in terms of what recipes you generally want to go on what gods, they're reducing that time again. Slash, we have some fairly major changes for. So they're basically here, all this giant text is basically saying slash games last too long, and we're trying to fix that. So they've like increased golden XP spooling, so you get to late game faster and get to full build faster. Apophis now respawns quicker and is easier to kill, and they also increased the buff from 25% to 35% in terms of structure damage, so a little bit easier to take down towers, phoenixes, and the game in Slash. And they've also added mist deployables, which I like what we had in, was it late season 9 or late season 8 or something with the snow map where they had the mist pods? It's that, but they've added it to Slash and they're going to be there permanently now. So there's going to be a bunch of these around like the middle of the map where you can hide in them and look to ambush enemies and stuff, so maybe look for a little bit more kill potential and then the game's a little bit faster. But yeah, that's basically the Slash changes. For Conquest, we have the Crimson Spirit Totem. They've increased the lifesteal from 7 to 10%. Obvious change in my opinion. I think the only reason it was 7% in the first place is because of 10.3 and they didn't want to add too much like free lifesteal to everyone. But we've pretty much seen that this is one of the least picked up. CDR and green, CDR and health were by far the most commonly picked up ones, especially CDR in the early game before you get your full CDR online in your build. Percent pen often used late game, and attack speed very much used on hunters and some basic attack assassins and stuff. Lifesteal was the clear underperformer in my opinion, so it's absolutely fine that they want to buff this. They did also talk about on the patch notes show that they might consider buffing the percent pen, you know, maybe from like 5 to 7 or whatever, but they're not too sure on that yet, because obviously you don't want to add too much percent pen to the game. You know, for example, if they made it 10% pen, I feel like all the damage dealers just pick that up late game once they've got their 40% CDR online, and then tanks get shredded, so you want to be a little bit careful with that. So for now, they've just increased the lifesteal on the Crimson Spirit Totem. Another thing introduced last patch as well, the recipes. So, Sturdy Stew, they have both the protections from 5 to 10 on it, so the support recipe, also the soul limb recipe in some cases, you're going to be getting a little bit more tanky from that. Party Punch, they have buffed the power scaling from 15 to 30 physical and 20 magical. So for magicals, it's only a little bit better. For physicals, it's doubly as good now. And obviously, most junglers are physicals, so this is going to be a pretty impactful change. You'll likely see some junglers, especially junglers that want to just get in, burst someone, and get the hell out. You'll likely see them looking towards Party Punch a lot more instead of Bountiful Bow now. 30% physical scaling is nothing to scoff at. I'm pretty sure that's straight up a Crusher passive, so if you're building Crusher as well, you know, your first ability hit or whatever is doing an extra 60% of your power. That can be a lot, you know, in the mid to late game. If you have like 200 power or something, that can be an extra over 100 damage pre-mitigations. So this is pretty impactful, especially for physical junglers. A little bit less so for magicals, but of course, magicals get access to more power. About at this ratio, actually, about a 3 to 2 ratio. But obviously reversed the other way. But yeah, so this makes sense. I like this change. And then Durable Drumstick, the other underperforming recipe. Obviously, Bow and Golden Gooseberries are fine. They're being picked up loads. But these other three weren't being picked up so much. Durable Drumstick, they have buffed the damage reduction from 20% to 40%. This is one I don't think I'm on board with, to be completely honest. And I'm saying this as a solo laner. I just don't really like the way this whole item works, to be honest. If it's just going to be a seasonal mechanic that's removed at the end of the year, I don't think it makes sense to rework the whole thing. So I can see why they might just want to like give it stat changes rather than introduce a whole new recipe. Because if these are going to get removed at the end of the year, there's no point in really finally refining them like that. But I just don't really like how this recipe works in general. It gives your opponents a lot of control over how they proc it, whereas the other ones are all like, you have the control over when you want to do that. You have the control over when you want to engage with Party Punch or like activate your Bountiful Bow on a certain ability or whatever like that. But Durable Drumstick, you don't really have a whole lot of control over that. If a random stray basic attack from a Khepri hits you as the first thing as you blink in, you're getting no value off of this. But on the flip side of the coin, 40% damage reduction is insane. And so when this item does work, it's going to be batshit broken. Like, if this works on an ultimate, You know, like if there was a Susanoo charging somewhere and you blinked in onto the backline at a poor time and you get clipped by that Susanoo, it's doing 40% less damage. That is insane. So I think this will be strong now. I think durable drumstick will be strong, and you might see solo laners picking it up a lot more, especially solo laners that want to be uber tanky and that don't necessarily need bow. You know, possibly Osiris picks this up if he doesn't need the gooseberries, but he is nice with gooseberries. But yeah, I imagine you'll start seeing a lot more solo laners pick this up. Kukulkan obviously going to love this now because he couldn't build bow in the first place. But yeah, this is just going to be really swingy now. It's either going to do absolutely nothing for you, which is how it's always worked since its introduction last patch. It can sometimes just do basically nothing for you if you get hit by a stray hit that only does 100 to 200 damage, but it can also be completely insane if you engage and the enemy drops one of their biggest damage abilities on you immediately. It could get some insane value. So durable drumstick, I think it's going to be strong. I think it's going to be picked up a lot, but I'm still not a big fan overall of the item design, and I would have rather seen them introduce some kind of damage cap or something like that. You know, it has to be over 200 damage post mitigations for this effect to activate or something like that, just to make it a bit more consistent. But yeah, probably going to be seeing a lot more durable drumstick. Spent a while on that because I am a solo main. But speaking of solo mains, Breastplate of Valor getting some buffs in the main items. So they're reducing the cost of it by 50 and increasing the MP5 10 to 20. So the cost reduction doesn't really matter too much. It's 50 gold, but an extra 10 MP5 is really nice for some solo laners. You know, RTO loves this item now. Arthur does like this item, especially with the increased MP5, but the problem is you kind of need Pribwin and Glad Shield. Well, you do need Pribwin and Glad Shield on King Arthur, and you're already at your cooldown reduction cap there if you include the warrior passive. So if you're also building Breastplate in that build, you either have to drop Pribwin, which you're quite sad about, or you have to go 20% overcapped on your CDR, and your Breastplate is just giving you MP5 and prots. It's not actually giving you CDR at that point. So yeah, a little bit hard to fit into your build if you're a Pribwin user. That's kind of just a problem of like Pribwin being ubiquitous and in every single build. It's not necessarily a problem with Breastplate. I think it is an okay spot after these changes, because they also buff the glyphs. So same change obviously with the MP5, but they increase the protections per stack from 5 to 7 on Determination. You can get up to 5 of these, so that's a 10 total prots increase at the max stacks. And Breastplate of Vigilance, they've increased the basic attack damage reduction from 15 to 25%. This is a pretty big change. This is really attractive now. Breastplate glyphs were always like just worse than basically every other glyph in the game, but this is actually quite an attractive effect. The Breastplate of Determination, less of a crazy change, but this 25% basic attack damage reduction, if you also have something in your build that's like reducing their attack speed, could potentially be really good at diving hunters in the backline if you're specifically building to like counter like an attack speed comp if they have like a Bakasura and a hunter, or double hunter comp, or like Freya and hunter or something like that. Runeforged Hammer getting some buffs as well to all of its variants. So they've increased the power on the base item by 5, and they've also increased the damage taken debuff on enemies from 10% to 15% on the base item. Flameforged Hammer, same change, and then they've increased the burn damage from 5 plus 7% of your prots to 10 plus 8%. And Rune Breaking Hammer, same change, and increase the damage dealt and taken debuffs from 10 to 15, so it goes to the same that the base item is on, but of course this one also has a damage dealt debuff as well. So yeah, these changes, they pretty much revert a lot of what happened with the nerfs, you know, with like Flameforged Hammer and stuff. I don't know why they nerfed Flameforged Hammer a while back when Pribwin was clearly the issue and no one was buying Flameforged. I'm not sure where it's at right now. I'm not sure if this is more than it was originally or less or the same, but yeah. Runeforged Hammer looking a lot more attractive now, especially Rune Breaking Hammer, man. 15%, and that's on 2 effects, so they're dealing 15% less to you, you're dealing 15% more to them. That's a 30% damage swing. That's pretty good. The physical power buff also just really nice for the laning phase. All your autos are doing 5 extra damage. That adds up over time. Your abilities will do a little bit extra as well. So probably going to see a lot more Runeforged Hammer picked up. And, you know, maybe if you're picking up Runeforged in your build, you don't need Pribwin at that point, or you can't get Pribwin at that point, and maybe you can pick up like a Breastplate or something as well, but maybe not glyph it. Yeah, we'll see. So some changes should be coming to solo builds with these things. Guardians are going to love this change. Warriors, not necessarily so much, but it kind of depends. Atalanta's Bow is getting 100 gold cost reduction and a 5 physical power increase. So Atalanta's Bow, really, since they changed it to be flat pen, it's really like seen no play. It wasn't really seen play before either, to be completely honest. It is quite an attractive early game option. It's just, do you really want to rush this? It kind of just doesn't have a niche, really. On a lot of auto attack junglers that you might want to rush this on for the flat pen, look for some early kills like Arachne or Mercury or Kali or something. You need Golden Blade in your first slot, and then by the time you get it online in second slot, like the flat pen is less valuable. and you probably want to be going into other items in your build. ADCs have a similar problem. You know, you need to go some lifesteal like Devos or RC first item, and so you can't really rush Atalanta's bow, but if you did, you would trade really well into someone that's trying to stack Devos, so maybe it has some kind of a niche there. Demonic Grip, they've increased the power by 10. Basically, Demonic Grip was the worst ring, and they're trying to make the rings a little bit more competitive with each other, so they're just buffing the power of Demonic Grip a little bit. Fabulous Hoops, also they have increased the shield health gain from 3% to 5%, so pretty big buff for Fabulous Hoops, but healers aren't super in the meta at the moment, I wouldn't say. And this item hasn't really seen significant play in a while. There are a lot of other really good healing boosting items that are actually outperforming Fabulous Hoops at the moment. You know, Rod of Asclepius, Card Club, Vital Amplifier, a lot of these items. Obviously, they're not necessarily, like, Vital Amplifier is not applicable in the same situation as Fabulous Hoops. I'm not saying that, but yeah, it's been underperforming a little bit, so I'm actually fine to see this buff. There's also been a lot of, like, anti-shielding and anti-healing added into the game, so. But moving on to gods. So Achilles is getting some buffs. I don't know why. When Achilles is meta, I hate myself, but they've increased the max health heals per ability from 2-2-3-3-4 to just 3-3-3-3-4. So this is going to be a really, really, really impactful change. Specifically because you rank this ability last, and so, you know, for up until like level 14, 15 or something, where you would start leveling this thing up, you're going to be getting an increased heal every single time you use this ability. So if you're hitting like melees on the wave, you're going to get 3 instead of 2 heals. This is going to help his sustain a ton. Really big change, super underrated change, because, you know, you'd have to get this thing to rank 3 before to get that same effect, but the same late game. Combat Dodge, they have increased the damage by 5 at all ranks and decreased the mana cost. Mainly in the late game. In the early game, reduce a little bit as well. I'm pretty sure you do pay the mana cost of this twice, so it's actually a pretty important reduction, especially for late game. You're going to be spending 20 less mana every time you cast this, and also I mean, 5 base damage doesn't really matter, but again, that is 10 base damage because you cast this twice. So yeah, pretty big changes for Achilles, more so on the Radiant Glory. This is less of a big change, but yeah, you should be seeing quite a lot more Achilles now. Artio, they have decreased the cooldown on her 1 in both stances to a flat 13 seconds instead of 15 to 13. I haven't played Artio in a long time, and I'm not an Artio main, but I'm pretty sure you level to 3 first, so this will actually make a really big difference, you know, up until, like, you can get your 1 fully maxed out. This is going to be having a reduced cooldown from what it was before, so that'll be pretty impactful. And the 3 heavy charge, they have increased the damage by 10 at all ranks. So some Artio buffs, not looking great so far in terms of cringe gods, dude. Achilles and Artio both getting buffs, but hopefully she won't be too strong. These changes do seem good, and also the buffs to breastplate. Artio loves breastplate, so this would be really nice for her, because she's not really a big Pribwin user, so she can fit that breastplate in her build a lot easier. Also, Guardians in general tend to like an early breastplate in their build. Baron Sandy getting some buffs, dude. Of course, it's the Maman patch. Who would have guessed that Baron Sandy would be getting some buffs? And I'm actually kind of okay with it. He's not top of the meta or anything. He's just, like, viable. They've increased the damage mitigation from 35 to 50 on his ult. So, basically, it's back to where it was at launch, boys. 50% damage mits while you're in that ult. Pretty big change. Also, people will probably just be spamming Baron a lot more in general, regardless of any buffs, because Maman Brigitte's in the game. You're going to see a lot of Maman Brigitte, Baron Sandy duo queues, I guarantee you that, especially from mid-jungle. So, probably going to be pretty impactful. You'll be seeing more Baron anyway, and you'll be seeing even more Baron, because 50% mits is very strong on this. Cerberus getting some buffs. They have increased the protections reduced on his 2. Really? Oh, dude. I don't know about this. This ability already shredded 39 procs. That's 39 flat pen. And it's proc reduction, so it's even better. Your mage is hitting even harder when you have this stacked up. And it's now going to be doing 51. 51 flat pen on this ability. It's not as much in the early game, but dude, in the late game, backliners only have about 70 to 80 procs. You're pretty much deleting over half their procs just by casting this ability on them. That is kind of insane, dude. That is kind of insane. They've also increased the damage on his ult by 20 up to 40, depending on rank, so less of a big change, but man, this is huge. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more Cerberus, dude. Just shredding 51 of the backliner's procs, your mage is going to one-shot them at that point. They're almost doing true damage, and obviously Cerberus himself will do a lot more damage. Yeah, applicable for both backline and frontline as well. You know, if you're diving, you're going to be doing more damage. Maybe you have a Maman Brigitte in the jungle who's going to be doing more insane damage to the backline when you've shredded all these procs. And also for backline, if you're peeling for your mage in the backline or whatever, you can just shred 51 procs off of the enemy jungler, and they're not going to be within their support auras at that point. So they're probably only going to have about 50 to 60 procs. You're basically just doing true damage to anyone that's diving your mage at that point. That is kind of insane, dude. Cerberus is going to be really strong, I think. Charybdis, continuing with the cringe god buffs, decreased the item damage reduction from 30% to 25%. So basically, on her multiple auto attack, she's going to be doing a little bit more with items like hint size and stuff like that. Capsize, they have decreased the cooldown. In the early game, same in the late game, but this should help her a little bit in terms of her wave clear and poking in lane. This is honestly fine. I'm saying Charybdis is cringe, but she's not strong at the moment, so I'm absolutely fine with her getting some buffs. Kukulkan getting some buffs. Interesting. They have increased the base damage in both forms of his 1 by 10, and they have increased the damage in both forms of his 3 by 5. Okay, not really any huge changes there. He's just going to be doing a little bit more. Maybe this hits a break point in the early game, this extra 10 damage where like your 1 plus like 2 autos kills the archers or something like that. If it is a break point, it could be a bigger deal, but really nothing too huge here. But he's also getting buffs to the recipe that he probably wants in the drumstick. I think you probably pick up drumstick on him now because you can't use bow, so that'll be like a little indirect buff to Kukulkan. Daji getting buffs. Wow. Increase the damage from 30 to 110 plus 35 to 35 to 115 plus 40%. So 5% extra scaling and 5 extra base damage at all ranks. And they have decreased the cooldown of her movement from 17 down to 15 at all ranks. This is ability you rank last, of course, so going to be pretty applicable for a majority of the game. In the late game, it won't matter, and Daji's late game is already really strong anyway, so yeah, Daji probably going to be pretty strong. I don't think she was bad before these changes, to be honest, so she'll probably be seen a lot more. Heim, they have increased the power per stack on his vigilance from being able to see enemy guards from 2% to 3%, and they've decreased the cooldown on his 1 by 2 seconds at all ranks. That's pretty impactful. So a lot more lane clear, a lot more poking, a lot more ability to secure like gold buffs and enemy purples and stuff like that. Big changes for Heim. Probably not going to change him all that much, but these are pretty significant. Kumbhakana, they have decreased the cooldown, basically giving the same change they did to Daji, so same in the late game, but much more in the early game, so you can throw that out for more poke and wave clear, and they have increased the damage on Groggy Strike as well by 10 at all ranks. So, to be honest, a lot of these changes this patch are kind of menial. There's some that are going to make a bigger impact, but these are also pretty menial. They did buff Kumbhakana fairly recently, and it's not like you really want Kumbhakana being the #1 support in the game. It's very cringe, so I'm kind of fine with buffs like this. Lancelot, they have changed his base MP5 from 1.6 to 4.6. This was much lower than the original intent and it was not discovered until recently. Okay, so if you're ever out of mana on Lance in the early game, this is probably the reason. You had like way less base MP5 than you really should have. And they've also decreased the cooldown on his 1 to 10 seconds. Man, okay, that's a pretty big change. So he's going to have this double dash available on a 6-second cooldown in the late game once he's got his max CDR online. That's actually a pretty big change. Prepared to see more Lance. Surtur, on the Flames of Muspel, they've increased the damage from 30 plus 3 to 35 plus 5. Okay, that's pretty big actually, considering how many stacks you can get. You know, even if you get to late game with like 50 stacks on this thing, that's going to be 100 extra damage on this ability. So that's actually a pretty big change. It's fairly low cooldown. You're going to be applying this to enemies multiple times in a fight. That's a pretty big change for Surtur. For the Morrigan, they've got a partial revert to some nerfs they made at the end of year 9 that they feel can be partially reverted. So they've increased the damage scaling on her 1 and increased the initial base damage, bonus minion damage, and bonus god base damage from 35 to 155. So they've done 5 more at all ranks. Yeah, this is fine. Morrigan, not really seeing a whole lot of play at the moment. But she is, obviously, the Morrigan. She can be really strong if you go with her. She can transform into anyone, so... Oh, the mana buffs. Of course, they're only to his base kit. They've decreased the cooldown from 15 to 11 to 13 to 11, so he has his 2 or more often for poke and lane clear, and they have increased the base damage on his 3 by 5 at all ranks. So, again, pretty menial changes. Will it bring back the mana meta? I don't think so. The main reason the mana meta existed is because his ult was ridiculously broken, and they've nerfed his ult down substantially. Buffs to the base kit is definitely the way to go. To be honest, I would rather see him get some spicy changes and maybe like nerf the ult a little bit more, but make his base kit actually like more usable. It's probably one of the worst base kits in the entire game, if not the worst. So some more significant changes like that is something I'd rather see than just buffing his base kit numbers, because if you make his base kit numbers too strong, then like he just becomes meta again, because his ult is still really good. But moving into nerfs, Amaterasu, they've decreased the attack speed buff on this from 15 to 35 to 15 to 25. So just a little bit less in the late game, same at rank 1. But yeah, Amaterasu was doing really well in the meta, so it makes sense that they're tuning this down. This was the change that kind of brought her back in, along with Golden Gooseberries, obviously. Ao Kuang, they've increased the cooldown of his ult from 90 to 100. Perfect. Ao Kuang, not top of the meta anymore, but he was for a while, and he's still, like... really frustrating to play into if you don't have good team communication, and this ult is super strong. This should have been on 100 seconds for a long time, in my opinion. Perfect change. Arachne, they have decreased the attack speed from 30 to 70 to 20 to 60 on her too. Arachne's been seeing a lot of play after the buffs. Being able to stun after 2 autos with her quick attack chain, you stun basically instantly now with Arachne. It's kind of insane. So yeah, some nerfs to her makes sense as well. Obviously, Golden Gooseberries were also really nice for her in terms of an addition. Chernobog, another spicy changes guy, decreased the attack speed stim from 40 to 60 to 30 to 50, so a little bit less on his attack speed stim. We have been seeing a lot of Chernobog. He was arguably top 1 ADC, so it makes sense that they're nerfing him. Hebo, they have increased his 2's cooldown by 2 seconds as well. So in the bonus balance, they also increased the cooldown of his 1 by 1 second, if you didn't see that. So a couple of nerfs to Hebo in terms of just bringing him down a little bit. He's obviously a very good Bow user. Kali decreased the duration of the power buff on Incense from 4 to 8 to 4 to 6. So in the late game, she's going to be getting a little bit less duration on that power in terms of being able to run people down. Kali, still insanely strong, still dominates in uncoordinated ranked lobbies. It's still going to have a very high win rate and pick ban rate, I imagine, but just decreasing her power a little bit. Raijin, actually been seeing a lot of play as well. Raijin seems super strong. They have decreased the base damage on Raiju from 40 to 60 to 20 to 60, and they've increased the cooldown from 14 to 10 to 15 to 11 as well. So his base damage change pretty important. He's going to have a way less just like initial burst at like levels 2 to 3 when he's just like 2-1ing you or 2-1-3ing you. He's going to have a little bit less there, making his early game a little bit more manageable, I suppose. But yeah, there we go. That is all the balance changes for patch 10.10. Nothing too crazy, ultimately. There are some, like, pretty impactful changes. The Surto one, the Cerberus one. I think the Cerberus one is going to be really huge. This shreds 51 procs in the late game now, completely insane. But yeah, overall, nothing too crazy in this patch. We did have a pretty crazy balance patch with the launch of the new season, so this is mainly just bringing up some low performers and bringing down some top performers by a little bit. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video on my breakdown of the patch notes. I will have a video on Maman Brigitte coming out really soon once she's shown on the patch notes, so stay tuned for that, and I will catch you guys in another one later on.